Inexperienced troops lead to a disastrous first battle for the Union. The First Battle of Manassas, or Bull Run, occurs on July 21st, 1861, by the Bull Run River outside of Manassas, Virginia. Believing Union troops will win a decisive victory, several congressmen travel down from Washington to watch the battle and actually picnic under the trees a little apart away from the battlefield. Their picnic is spoiled when Confederate infantry reinforcements arrive and send the green Union troops into a panic. Soldiers and congressmen run for their lives.
Few battles happened during the Civil War the first year. In February 1862, the Union wins a decisive victory with Ulysses S. Grant and Andrew H. Foote captured Fort Henry and Fort Donelson. Union troops take Nashville by month's end. Grant wins promotion for his leadership.
In April, the Battle of Shiloh devastates both sides, but the Union gains the upper hand. Shiloh is the first of many horrifically bloody battles that will occur throughout the Civil War. On April, they will hold this important port for the rest of the war. A few days later, McClellan occupies Yorktown, but he delays in attempting to capture Richmond, the Confederate capital, despite Lincoln's constant urging. Things go poorly for Union during several battles, and it now apparent to Lincoln that his original goal of keeping the Union together is not adequate motivation to win the war. Freeing the slaves will weaken the Confederacy and give the Union a nobler goal to fight for, because of the North's frustration with the war's slow progress. McClellan's significant victory at Antietam allows Lincoln to announce the Emancipation Proclamation on a wave of Union victory. However, Antietam is McClellan's only significant victory. On January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation takes effect. Unfortunately, this frees slaves in only the rebel states, and since the president has no constitutional power to free slaves in loyal states.
That July, Union forces under George Gordon Meade win a decisive victory over the Confederates at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Lee's determination that his forces should win less leads him to make costly mistakes. In the meanwhile, Grant's forces have been sieging Vicksburg, a vital port which will allow the Union to gain control of the Mississippi. After 6 weeks of siege, the Confederates surrendered Vicksburg July 4th, 1863. Control of the Mississippi is vital to the Union victory, for the Confederacy has been smuggling supplies by it. Grant's strategy has paid off, and Scott's Anaconda Plan is beginning to squeeze the Confederacy from two sides. Union forces face bloody battles that September in Tennessee, but the tide is definitely turning in the Union's favor.
Lincoln has finally found a general who has what it takes. In March 1864, Grant is appointed head of the armies of the United States. Grant and his friend General William T. Sherman are not afraid to use what might seem ruthless tactics to win the Civil War. They reason that the sooner the conflict is over, the fewer lives will be lost in the long run. That May, Grant begins the campaign against Richmond and the Confederate capital, while Sherman begins his march to Atlanta, burning Confederate cities and supplies as he goes. By September, Sherman's forces take Atlanta and burn the city after evacuating its residents. Sherman's march to the sea begins, and by December he occupies Savannah, Georgia. The Confederacy is dying. Hunger is plaguing civilians and soldiers alike, and getting ammunition is becoming more difficult. Sherman's march to the sea has cut the South in two, just as he and Grant have planned. Confederate representatives meet with Lincoln, but they refuse his terms of surrender. On April 3, 1865, Union forces occupy Richmond. 5 days later, Lee surrenders to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. Though some Confederate forces will continue to fight until early May, the Civil War is over.
Sadly, the Union's guiding forces will not live to see the aftermath of victory. Lincoln was killed while attending a play with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, at Ford's Theater. The Lincoln assassination occurred on April 14th, the day of the Union flag.